Wrong intro. I apologize. This is Saturday Showdown. We're going to talk college football playoff round one. We got four really, really great matchups, I think. You have Alabama, Oklahoma, which is going to be Friday, this coming Friday. JMU taking on Oregon. You have Tulane taking on Ole Miss. And, of course, Miami taking on Texas A&M. So we're going to get talking about a little bit of all four of them just for a little quick 30 or so minute show. Just to get you up to date on some of the things going on. So we're going to talk about the first game of the college football playoffs, which is Alabama taking on Oklahoma. Now, these two have met before, earlier this season. You have Alabama as the 8 seed, or the 9 seed, Oklahoma as the 8th seed. The game taking place in Norman, Oklahoma. Winner is going to advance to take on number 1 Indiana in the Rose Bowl game. Now, these two powerhouses programs have met or meet again after Oklahoma handed Alabama that 23-21 loss earlier in November, earlier in the season. Now this is playoffs, though, so it's win or go home. Now, you might have dropped in the rankings just a tad with that loss if you're Alabama. You might have rose a little bit if you're Oklahoma, but it's win or go home at this point in time. Okay, let's see what happens here. Talk about the team breakdowns just a little bit. We'll start with the Alabama Crimson Tide. So offensively, they're a pretty solid team. Offensively, that's probably one of their strongest points. They're efficient passers across the board. You're looking at a guy, Ty Simpson, who's thrown for 26 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions, 3,268 yards on the season. He's 275 for 426 or 428. So they're a pretty solid team across the board. You have Bernard, who has 57 receptions, 762 yards, along with 7 touchdowns. So they're going to need they're definitely going to need that pass efficiency to break open some of these, to get after Oklahoma in this game. Oklahoma has a very stout defense, a very good run defense, I should say. We'll get to that in just a minute. Getting more defensively for Alabama, breaking down, a little bit. You got a top tier scoring defense, or points only allowing less than 17.4 points per game allowed so far this season for Alabama. So they're pretty decent on the defensive side of the ball too. Now they have shown a little bit of struggle the last couple of weeks. We have this loss here later in the season against Oklahoma, and then you had that loss in the SEC championship game against Georgia, where they just didn't look right. Something wasn't. It just didn't look right. We could all see it. They couldn't run the ball, and that might have just been because Georgia's playing really good football right now. You can't complain about that. It's hard to beat a team who's playing really solid football the way Georgia's playing football right now. So we'll see what happens there. On the other side of things, one of their weaknesses is their run game. Okay, they don't have a great run game necessarily. You're looking at the guy who's only the leading rusher in Jam Miller, who only has 123 carries on the season, 3 touchdowns, 493 rushing yards on the season. It's not a spectacular stat if you want to look at it. Okay. They're going to struggle in the college football playoffs without being consistent and efficient across the board. And where you're going to hear that word a lot is efficient. The next guy up is Daniel Hill, 61 carries, 228 yards on the season, averaging 4 yards. They're both averaging, I would say, all their top 3 guys, Kevin Riley too, all averaging about 4 yards per carry. So nothing crazy. Now, what is nice about it is that they have guys who do score. So Daniel Hill's 5 touchdowns, Jam Miller 3 touchdowns. You're looking at Kevin Riley, you have 2 touchdowns there. A.K. Deere with 3. Even Ty Simpson can run the ball, so he's not afraid to get in there and get messy when he needs to. But they really struggle um, on the offensive side of the ball, and it ranks, near one of the lowest rushing teams in the country. I mean, you're looking at a team that um, first down wise, 82, 82 rushing first downs. Passing wise, you're looking at 173. So not a whole bunch. Rushing yards total as a team, you're looking at 1,500, 116 yards per game for the Alabama Crimson Tide. So we'll see what happens there. Alabama's passing game is elite. Defense is really good, but the ground game has been a weak point all season. And Oklahoma has a really good run defense. Really good run defense, in my opinion. So let's talk about the Oklahoma Sooners here a little bit. You're looking at a balanced attack from the Oklahoma Sooners. They can run the ball, they can throw the ball, but they're very inconsistent at the same time. They are. I mean, you look at some of the stats for the Oklahoma Sooners across the board. Let me get there. Mateer can throw the ball very well. We all know that he hasn't been overly crazy. He has thrown 10 interceptions to 12 touchdowns, 2,578 passing yards on 221 completions. So it's nothing crazy. When it comes to rushing, though, is a little bit better than Alabama. Not a whole bunch better. It's not a strong suit of theirs either. But their passing game is a lot better than Alabama's, in my personal opinion. You got a guy in Isaiah Stignita III, 65 receptions, 948 rushing or 400 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns on the season. So easily a team leader. You got Deion Burks as well, 512 or 13 yards, 3 touchdowns on the season. The top 4 guys in Saniga, Dirks, Kanak, and Lewis all averaging 10 or 11, almost 11 yards. We'll just go 11 yards per catch. I mean, you're looking at a pretty stout passing game, but it's again, it can be very inconsistent. It's at the same time. They either do really, really well or they're they struggle to score. And I think a lot of that falls back on their defense. How their defense plays is how, what kind of offense you're going to see. You get really, really good run defense out of the Oklahoma Sooners. In my case, I think they, if you look back and watch that Mizzou game, they had a really, really good, start of that game. Not a good start. I mean, not a good start. Mizzou walked right down the field on them. After that, they shut Mizzou's run game down, which Mizzou can't really throw the ball that often or that well. So, it definitely showed at that point in time of what what happened. So you did talk about some of the key matchups, storyline. So you're looking at Simpson versus Mateer, Oklahoma against Alabama. So you're looking at the efficiency versus ceiling challenges. So which guy can go higher? Which guy is going to do more to get his team to perform better, be better, play better. Basically, where you're going to see, and then you're obviously the turnovers. That was a big ordeal in the first time. The first game they played back in November. Oklahoma didn't turn the ball over one time. They went into Tuscaloosa, beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. It doesn't happen very often. Alabama had 3 turnovers. That right there is going to lose you football games. So, turning point, I think, field positions, obviously, and turnovers would be a huge deal in a tight football game like this, just like that regular season bout earlier on. So we'll see what happens with that one. So experts across the board expect another close game. Alabama might have the edge on paper, but I don't think they get that. I was listening to something earlier. I was talking about how Kalen DeBoer, and Alabama haven't beat Oklahoma once yet. They're 0-2 against Oklahoma since Kalen DeBoer started in Oklahoma or at Alabama. So we'll see what happens. I like Oklahoma to get a win here in this one, but I think it's going to be close. I think Alabama's a 1.5 point favorites right now to win this game. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Um, just some players to watch, obviously, for Alabama, Ty Simpson, and whatnot. X factor wise is going to be the turnover margin, in special teams. So if Alabama protects the ball, Ty Simpson stays hot, they control the tempo of the game. But if Oklahoma at the same time flips the field with defense and turnovers, you could have chaos. You have a very ugly game very quickly, in this one. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. We're gonna jump over to the next game here, um, as well. Let me get things moving here, and whatnot. You're gonna take a look at. Let us know who you think's gonna win Alabama and Alabama versus Oklahoma. By the way, um, we always want to hear your thoughts on things as well. So let us know what you think. We're going to jump over to the next game here. You got Oregon taking on James Madison. James Madison getting into the playoffs for the first time. Congratulations, James Madison. It's well deserved. Well deserved. You guys had a heck of a season. Oregon enters this game as probably one of the most complete teams outside of maybe Ohio State and Indiana, maybe Georgia too, in the playoff field. They have a really good offense. Home field advantage is going to be huge for them. It's their first playoff game at home. As well, and you have championship expectations for Oregon, just like you do every single year. James Madison, they want to break the mold. Okay, they want to be that group of 5 team that surprises everybody, and kind of shocks the world, to say the least. This isn't just about necessarily talent; it's about rather discipline and execution. It can close a gap against speed and explosion. So discipline and execution, you're talking about James Madison. Speed and explosiveness, you're talking about the Oregon Ducks. They're a very quick, fast team. We all know that. It's the way it has been for years for Oregon. James Madison's path to the playoffs, man, was built on consistency. They don't beat themselves. They force mistakes and they turn games into 4-quarter grinders. Okay, so they're gonna get things going. So you're looking at a strong identity for JMU as being, strong turnover margin. They have a pretty efficient offense and they're very physical on defense. They're comfortable winning games in the 20s. Between that 20 to 30 mark, and then that matters against a team like Oregon. They can control the game, they control the tempo of the game, they can keep the ball in their possession. Hey, you might see an upset that you didn't see coming. Now, on the other side of things, talk about the Oregon Ducks. This is an Oregon team that can overwhelm you very quickly. They throw the ball really well. They have a really good run game. Defensively, they're good. They don't wait for you to blink. They force you to chase. They force you to play a really, really fast game, which some teams just can't handle. They really can't. Offensively, they have an explosive passing attack. I know they're being beat up a little bit on the wide receiver things, but they got some elite speed at skill positions. Looking at fast tempo, like I mentioned, the fast tempo stresses defenses out, and it might just be enough to move on to the quarterfinals for the Oregon Ducks. Defensively, they're really good. They have a better pass rush. They tackle better in space. They've been better tackling in space, and they limit those explosive plays that James Madison's probably going to have to stay in this one. It's not flashy. It's not a crazy over the top looking defense, but it's enough, and it does what it needs to do to get wins. Get a home field advantage as well in this one. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. You break down James Madison just a little bit more. They don't win with flash. They win with structure. They win with discipline. They ball control. They high completion percentage across the board for James Madison. I mean, you can't look past James Madison. You look past James Madison, you're gonna have some issues. You could have some issues. We'll see what happens. They want to have those long clock draining drives, which is what's going to help keep them in this game. Oregon is 88% chance to win this one. They are 20 something, 21-point favorites to get a win to move on to the quarterfinals to take on, I think, is it Georgia? No, Texas Tech. To take on Texas Tech. Anyways, back to James Madison. The Duke's defense is designed to bend without breaking, and they frustrate explosive teams. See what happens. Again, they're going to do a pretty solid team. 12-1 versus 11-1. If James Madison can stay calm, they can keep themselves controlled and whatnot in a very hostile environment in Eugene. They might have a chance. They might have a chance. So some key matchups that might decide this game. Number one, you're looking at Oregon's speed versus JMU's deep discipline. Oregon wants that space. They want to spread you out offensively. James Madison likes the structure of the defense. They're going to keep things short. They're going to keep things calm. That's what's going to happen. So we're looking at number two, our key matchup for number two that could decide this game is going to be James Madison's time of possession versus Oregon's tempo. How fast can Oregon score? How many points can they get up on James Madison that quickly? And then, JMU's time of possession, how much they can control the clock. If they can control the clock, every long drive for James Madison is going to matter, and it could easily result in a win for the Dukes in Eugene, which would be something else. You cannot say it's not possible, because everything is possible. Anything is possible. And whatnot. Now, our last key matchup, number three, if Oregon hits those big chunk plays early on, Dukes are going to be forced out of their comfort zone. They're going to be in a spot that they're not used to. They're already in a spot they're not used to anyways. Being in the college football playoffs, having to play against a very high-tempo offense in the Oregon Ducks is just a very good team in general for the Oregon, when it comes to Oregon. So we'll see. We'll see. Oregon on paper obviously has the advantage of the explosiveness, the depth, the home field, the experience of being there and whatnot. You're going to look at a very fast start from Oregon like they do. They're going to jump out early on you and get things rolling, and that's just how they play. I think JMU will settle in after a little bit. Big thing is rather not JMU can handle. Can they survive the first few punches that Oregon's going to bring? They're going to bring a lot of pressure defensively, especially if James Madison gets the ball first. They're going to try to get that turnover quick, and they're going to try to get it early. They will. That's just that's how Oregon plays. They're going to try to pressure you as much as they can in this one. There's a matchup. It looks very comfortable for Oregon. For Oregon fans, it looks very comfortable that they should get a win here. Oregon controls the pace of the game, keeps James Madison off of the field. I mean, at the same time, you kind of have to fight fire with fire. So if you're Oregon, you want to be on the field longer than you typically do because James Madison will ride the clock out, and they'll beat you that way. I still think Oregon gets this one by 14. I don't think it's 21. I think it's closer to 14. I think James Madison is going to be better than they do, but Oregon's depth and experience is going to show up later in the game and get a win and move on to the quarterfinals to take on Texas Tech. So there's a big statement game. So we'll see. Big statement game for Oregon. They need this type of win. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. So you just can James Madison compete. Oregon's built to advance. We'll put it that way. So let's know: is this a statement game for Oregon, or is it a first round playoff shocker? Can James Madison do the impossible and take down the mighty Oregon Ducks? Drop your, obviously we want to know your thoughts as well. We'll be here throughout the college football playoffs as well, as much as we want to be. We'll see if James Madison can make history. We'll see what happens. Catch my breath really quick. Not catch my breath, but I'm gonna get a drink of water. It's good quality H2O. Alrighty. Jumping over to our third game here that we're going to talk about. We're talking about the looking at Ole Miss taking on Tulane. Now these two also played earlier in the season with it was fairly close, I would say. The first time they played, back in, was it October? These two teams played. I think it was back. It's been a little bit. Let's go full schedule. See if I can get it to pull up here. But I know Oregon, or not Oregon, Ole Miss won by 40. Yeah, they beat them by 35 points. They beat Tulane by 35 points. So we'll see. We'll see. Round one, obviously, we're getting another matchup here. It gives us a true style clash. You get Tulane taking on Ole Miss, headed to Oxford to take on Rebels. It's gonna be tempo versus toughness. One of these teams is gonna have about to have their season defined, in my opinion. But we'll see what happens. Ole Miss obviously enters as favorites for this one. What are they? 17.5-point favorites, which makes sense because they won their other game. First time they played them by 35. So yeah, it makes sense. They're explosive, they're aggressive, they're playing at home. But don't turn your head to Tulane. Okay. Don't turn your head to Tulane. They're very disciplined, they're very physical, and they're comfortable being the underdog. They have no problem being the underdog. In this one, this matchup is going to come down to one question: is whether or not can Tulane slow down the game enough to survive survive the Ole Miss firepower. The Ole Miss is going to throw the ball around all over the place. There's no Lane Kiffin anymore, so you don't feel like you have that kind of like ice buildup. I guess if that makes sense in a way. Like you had this, I don't know. It seems more relaxed for Ole Miss going into this game. We'll break down Tulane here really quick. Tulane's identity is simple. They're going to they want to control the game. You're looking at a 2:30 kickoff on Saturday, December 20th at Oxford. So they're on the road. They played once already there, they lost. They're going to want to control the game as much as they can. Ball control as well offensively. Don't have those turnovers when you need them or when you don't want them to happen. Efficient passing. They're not too bad of a passing team from the looks of it, from all the stats and stuff that I've seen so far. And use your play action. Get Ole Miss moving around defensively to make them uncomfortable. If you make them uncomfortable, you're going to have a pretty good shot at beating this team. And Ole Miss has been relatively up and down, especially when it comes to playing teams like Tulane. They seem to have slower starts. Just what I've seen. So they want long drives and fewer possessions for Ole Miss's offense. Same way JMU is going to get a win if they get their win. Simple as that. Defensively, Tulane, you're looking at a very physical front. They tackle very well, and they force mistakes with pressure. Okay, this defense is not overwhelming. It's very similar to James Madison, but this defense will keep coming at you. Okay, compared to James Madison, you're looking at a lot of situational football in this one, especially early on. I think Tulane wins on third downs, and in the red zone, they have a really good chance of winning. If they can keep Ole Miss to kicking field goals, they have a really, really good chance of getting a win in this game. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll talk about some Ole Miss really quick. Ole Miss, they're built to score. They score fast. They score a lot of points. They're very high-tempo passing offense, very similar to Oregon. They run the ball well. They have very explosive receivers, and they look for those quick strike touchdowns that get you. They can flip a game or flip the game in a couple plays. You can go from 7-0 to 28-0 within 4 or 5 plays. They're very quick offensively, very explosive as well. You've seen that throughout the season. You got to be, if you're Ole Miss, if you're on the defensive side of Ole Miss, don't be out on the field too long. You can't let Tulane run to beat you. use your crowd, use your um, home field advantage to the case. If Ole Miss can dictate the tempo of the game, this one's over by halftime. Look at some of our key matchups. We got three of them once again. Some of our key matchups here. You got Tulane's time of possession versus Ole Miss tempo. So again, very similar to the Oregon JMU side of things. If Tulane's drive is an attempt to keep Ole Miss off the field, okay, every Tulane drive. Let me repeat that myself. Repeat that again. Every Tulane drive is an attempt to keep Ole Miss's offense off the field. Okay, so the longer the Tulane Green Wave offense is out there, the better off they'll be. Okay. Matchup number two, again, key matchup number two, I should say. It again is Ole Miss explosiveness versus Tulane discipline. So very similar to what we're seeing out of Oregon and James Madison is flowing right back into this one. Tulane cannot give up big chunk plays. They cannot give up those big explosive plays that Ole Miss relies on to beat them. And if you're Tulane, you got to get into the red zone. You got to score touchdowns. Field goals aren't going to get you a win. You got to score touchdowns. So you got to have a better red zone efficiency than Ole Miss. If you're not going to have that, you're not going to walk out of Oxford with a win. And Ole Miss is going to move on to the quarterfinals to take on Georgia. Brett Slav is not an awful quarterback. 2000. This should be a closer game than what the spread is showing right now, or what the over under is showing right now. I think this is actually a closer game than we think. What's going to be the big difference is the rushing for Ole Miss. So we'll see. Game's going to hinge on this. Going to be the first quarter is going to dictate how this game's going to go. If Tulane can stay with it, they could start fast, keep Ole Miss offense off the field. We'll see what happens. Ole Miss starts fast, I imagine. Tulane again, they're going to look to settle in, and there'll be one big momentum change that changes how this game goes. We'll see. If Ole Miss can keep this one late, or not Ole Miss, if Tulane can keep this one close late, pressure is going to flip to Ole Miss, and they're going to have that going into next round, rather not they win or lose. Okay, because they'll have to face a very tough Georgia team. My prediction, I think Ole Miss has the firepower to get a win here, but it's rather not. Tulane can put a game plan together to take care of Ole Miss. I still think Ole Miss wins by, I'm going to go 7. They'll win by 7-10. They'll win by a 7-10. So let us know what you think. Is this going to be more of a shootout style game, or is it going to be a slow burn upset? Let us know. Obviously, let us know who you're picking in this one. Whether it's Tulane, whether it's the Green Wave, or if it's the Ole Miss Rebels. Obviously, I think if there's any game that has a possibility of an upset, it's this one right here. And shout out to my good friends over at Home Field for hooking us up. We always supporting anybody who helps support us. So go check out Home Field and use code via Variety Sports, all caps, to get 15% off your first purchase. Tons of awesome stuff. Lots of cool vintage looking apparel over at Home Field. So make sure you go check that out as well. So again, let us know who you think is going to win. We already talked about Oklahoma, Alabama, JMU, Oregon. We just finished up talking about Tulane and Ole Miss. So let's jump over to the final game, of the first round, and we're talking Miami taking on the Texas A&M Aggies. I know both these teams have a very common opponent in Notre Dame. Both beat Notre Dame. That's why both of these teams are here. Okay, that's why both of these teams are here. Round one of the college football always brings us a physical showdown, and I think that's what this one is. Miami heads into College Station to face Texas A&M. Should be a great game. The speed meets strength, and neither of these two teams back down. Texas A&M, my opinion, Sorry, 3-Tech guys. I don't think they're as good as the co-opponent, the co-team there in Texas and as Texas Tech. I don't think they're as good as Texas Tech. I could be wrong. I mean, I might be wrong. I could be wrong. Might probably wrong. Who knows? At this point, Texas A&M, obviously, you get a big home field advantage being at Kyle Field, but Miami brings that explosiveness or explosive talent that can flip games in second. You get Carson Beck in there. Winner moves on to the quarterfinals to take on the Ohio State University. This matchup is going to come down to who can control the trenches, who's going to have a better offensive line to beat their defensive line, basically, to get things rolling. Okay, let's talk about Miami. Miami's built on speed. They have explosive skill players. They have a vertical passing game, a very quick strike ability, but they also can run the clock down. They don't need long drives, but they will use them if they need to. Okay, they will, take that time of possession and use it in their advantage if they need to. But if they don't have to, they won't. They're going to quick strike you like a freaking cobra. Okay, they'll come at you very quickly. So again, they don't need long drives to really get things going. Aggressively on defense, they're aggressive on defense. They can force turnovers very quickly or pretty quickly, but they are vulnerable to power run games. Very vulnerable to power run games, and Texas A&M I think has a pretty solid, a pretty decent run game. I don't think it's over the top, but it's decent. You're looking at this game at a 11 a.m. kickoff on Saturday. Texas A&M currently favored in this one by 3.5 points. The over/under at around 50. Texas A&M is 50% chance, or 54% chance to get a win here. But if Miami wins, it's because they hit those big plays early and they take the crowd out of it. They get underneath of that Texas A&M defense and get behind it too. Get underneath of it, get behind it. They got it. We'll see what happens. But I like that. I think Miami has a very good shot of beating Texas A&M. I think you saw a little bit of exposure happen in that Texas game for Texas A&M as well, and I think Miami's going to use that to their advantage as much as they can. Texas A&M obviously wants to turn this into a street fight, man. They want to beat up on Miami. If that's how they're going to do it, that's how they're going to get a win. That's how they're going to do it. They're gonna come at you. They're gonna, they have a power run game. Who has, they have a really good running back in Ruben Owens is in one of them. And you got KC. I'm gonna butcher the dude's name. Concepcion, who has 5 receptions, 57 receptions, 9 touchdowns. But on the other side, you got Malachi Toney for Miami. So very even. I think this is more of the most even game we're probably going to see all weekend. Then you look at stats wise. Play action passing obviously is going to be big for Texas A&M, and then physical tempo. They can get after it. They can get the run game going, get things moving down the field. Texas A&M should have no problem winning that game. They shouldn't. Defensively, they have a very good defense. They're strong up front. They're pressure heavy when it comes to their schemes, and they limit those explosive runs. Okay, so Miami doesn't have a huge run game. 141 carries for Mark Fletcher Jr., running back, 685 yards, 10 touchdowns. So nothing over the top for Miami. So they do have that home field edge, being at Kyle Field. Somehow disrupts communication. It gets loud and rowdy in that place. So that's one of the things. But if Texas A&M can control the line of scrimmage, Miami is going to struggle, which means good things for Texas A&M. Now looking at some of our key matchups. Key matchup number 1 is Miami's speed versus Texas A&M's physicality. It's going to be the theme of the game. Rather not Texas A&M can just pound away at Miami, or is the speed of Miami going to be too much for Texas A&M, and they're going to get, How well are the corners going to be able to cover some of their wide receivers who are a little quicker than some of the guys that they might have seen throughout the year? Okay. Our key matchup number 2, you're looking at the Texas A&M run game versus Miami's defensive front. Now, the Miami defensive front's pretty solid, but they're going to hold you up inside. They're going to try to keep things controlled and not let you get those secondary bounces or break tackles. They're going to fill the gaps that they need to and get where they're supposed to be. So we'll see. And the third one, which I think is the biggest one, in my opinion, is the turnovers. The short field changes everything, and that might be the case in this one. If you can get turnovers, if you let a team get inside of your 35 turning the ball over, they're going to score one way or another, whether it's a field goal or it's a touchdown. Okay, they're going to score, and you can't have that in these types of games, not in these win-or-go-home type of games. You can't have that kind of stuff. You cannot give the other team short field and whatnot. I think this is a good one. I think we're going to see a little bit of a back-and-forth battle. I think this is going to be more of a shootout than we think it's going to be, but it could be wrong. Miami lands a couple of knockout punches. That pressure flips pretty instantly on Texas A&M, but I think Texas A&M has enough to come back to do that. It's probably the closest game in round 1. I don't see how it's not. I don't see how this game is a blowout in any way. I think Texas A&M, though, does have enough. It's going to come down to final possession at the end of the game. Texas A&M by 3 at least. At 3. So we'll see what happens with that one. So obviously we want to hear what you have to say. So is it going to come down to speed or strength? Which one wins in the playoffs? Let us know all 4 of your picks of the college football playoffs. And stay here tuned in to Variety Sports Network for more of your college football playoff coverage. We'll do our absolute best to keep up with everything as much as we can throughout the 12-team playoffs this year. So we'll hopefully be back at the end of it to recap everything and just kind of talk about it. And we'll probably go live if we can with that. So let us know your 4 picks for round 1, and we will see you at the end of it.